Hello everyone and welcome. Sit back, relax, make a cup of tea or whatever you like to drink and get ready for new stories from Yellowcat. Send your own favorite stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. So subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. Has anyone ever furiously quit their job? Why? Did this have any unintended consequences? Part 2. 2 times. My first job was at a body jewelry store in the neighborhood shopping center. At the time, I was working 2 jobs and was about 23 years old. I took the body jewelry job to make up for the hours I had been hacked from the other job. Body jewelry job disregarded this, even though they knew it. My hours were always changing, so I had to go to the body jewelry store every day to check them. Occasionally, I would also get calls from them multiple times a day with changes to my schedule. I never once told them which days were totally off limits, so there was some confusion that led to the store owner to believe I couldn't work Tuesdays at all. Afterwards, it was Wednesdays. My 17-year-old manager then told me that's what you do if you have to call the store every day to check your schedule. It's all part of becoming an adult and working. Next day, I was nowhere to be found. My second job involved working in a call center conducting market research, which involved contacting people to fill out surveys, mostly for auto insurance companies. Questions like, how was your experience with such and such repair shop, among other things. The management was terrible, the job itself was terrible, and I now hardly have any respect or faith in humanity. I lost my cool and became irrationally angry at a respondent in front of management. It was more of a tone issue than anything really bad. I dismissed the interaction and carried on with my day. You could get in trouble for not making enough calls in a day, so I always kept track of how many calls I made and how many breaks I took. The computer also told us how many completes we had. I also kept track of how many successful surveys I completed each day. I get called into the office for my official write-up regarding the snapping tone incident 1 week later. I informed them that I had never received a verbal warning at all. They said, "Oh, we're getting an official write-up for your attitude. We thought someone already gave you one, but they didn't." Oh, and on that particular day, not making enough calls. I quickly pulled out my notebook and gave them a detailed breakdown of the number of calls and completions I had made, along with a history of any prior days and up to the present. They threatened to write me up again for having the notebook and accused me of fabricating that information. They claimed it was a distraction, even though they had all seen me using it since the first day I was hired. The next day, I stopped going because I was simply too stressed out. I would almost always make at least one trip to the bathroom to cry during the course of the workday. It was that bad. I had been employed at Papa Murphy's for approximately a year when I was 17. I had the greatest boss I've ever had when I was hired. Each employee there was like family. That boss eventually moved away and his awful replacement took over. Not only was this guy a habitual liar, but he was the biggest idiot I've ever met. He was this short, scrawny guy with glasses and the U-shaped balding thing going on. It was my first Friday off in months, the Friday before the Super Bowl. When I arrived to pick up my paycheck, everyone had been foolishly sent home by Genius. He was being executed. Despite his inability to pay me, he asked for my assistance. I did because I felt bad for him. Then he requested that I assist with prep tomorrow for 5 hours in advance paying, begging that he was not able to do it by himself. Okay, I replied. When I arrive at work at 8 in the morning, my shift leader, who happens to be one of the nicest and hardest workers I know, is the only person there. We started working since we thought he was running late. We called an hour later, but nobody picked up. Nobody responds for 2 hours. When we finally reach him at 11, he apologizes and says he'll be there shortly. At 1:30 p.m., the guy drools in, goes straight back to the dish pit, hides, and offers no assistance at all. Not one thing, G-D-it! And last, Whitney, my shift leader, returns and threatens to not show up tomorrow if he doesn't come help because she's fed up with his ass. He remains silent. On Super Bowl Sunday, as we're getting ready for all of the call-in orders, Jeff starts yelling, "What a piece of S Whitney is for not showing up, how ridiculous of an employee she is, and how he accomplished all the effing work yesterday without any assistance." I had it at that point. If he didn't show up or offer assistance, I could handle it because it meant I wouldn't have to be around him. But to disparage one of our few decent employees and claim credit for her work? Not at all. Not at all okay. You are the piece of S that does not contribute to this place, disobeys orders, disappears from your office, and tells falsehoods about everything," I told him. "How on earth did you become so deluded by the age of 40? Have fun managing Super Bowl Sunday without the few knowledgeable employees. F you, F this place." I then gave him the finger and left. To never have to see that guy again felt so good. A manager at another Papa Murphy's called me a month later to come work for him, and I was given a raise. 3 months later, Jeff was fired. Winning! My first real job was quit. In the summer preceding my college freshman year, I worked for a temporary agency. I was assigned to a painting crew by them. Fantastic. In 2002, the pay of $9.50 per hour was considered good for a 17-year-old. I was used to hard labor and short fuse because I had worked summers and weekends on my uncle's farm. When Bill, the painting company owner, arrived, he said, "We have exactly 5 weeks to strip and paint 2 very large houses by hand." Not a huge deal, correct? We were given giant ladders and paint buckets. He would spend the week at a different job site because it paid more. On Mondays, he would come by and give us the order to march. The following 5 weeks are described here. 2 guys were fired for no reason. Claims to have seen them having fun during their lunch break. He called me a P because I would park my car behind his shaky ladders to keep them from moving. His ladder slipped on the pavement the day before, and I nearly fell off the top. Before I fell 25 feet onto the pavement, I caught myself. Hired 2 more men, let them go after a week. Continue shouting and calling us useless pieces of S. I tolerate it because I have to keep this job. Before asking his indolent daughter and her equally worthless boyfriend to assist with painting the house, he had hired and fired 8 people in total. They would then leave me alone to paint the houses at around 9 in the afternoon and not return until 3. On the day I resigned, I arrived early as usual. I prefer to arrive, set everything up, and start working after my coffee had had time to brew. He comes in with his girlfriend, or daughter, and he starts biting my A because the project is taking longer than he estimated it would. I had nearly finished stripping the second house and had painted a whole house by myself. I just put up with the mistreatment. I heard him mutter, "Lazy piece of S," as I was carrying a ladder back to the house. Then something clicked. Along with telling him to go F himself, I dropped the ladder in the parking lot and walked away. I called my employer, and that afternoon, they helped me secure a new position. Considering that they had previously dealt with Bill, they were taken aback by my prolonged presence. As a result of the deal, he lost money. My employer refused to send him any more men since, after a week, all he did was fire them. The customer informed him that the second house wasn't painted to their satisfaction. The boyfriend and daughter used rollers instead of brushes, so he had to paint it again by hand. His daughter and boyfriend had spent the entire summer painting the house. I'm not sure when it happened, but his company is closed. I'd love to hear some scary HOA stories, part 2. I relocated to Florida. Not familiar with HOAs. I thought they sounded ridiculous. Our realtor informed us that finding a house would be impossible if we didn't live in one. We move into a lovely home in a homeowners association. Townhouses and single-family homes are both part of the HOA, working class area. The HOA maintains the townhouses and collects higher dues from them. Single-family homes have owners who maintain them and pay slightly less. Every single year I lived there, without fail, HOA fees increased by 10%. My neighbors are 2 older retired people who are really neat. One actually doesn't give a D what anybody else does on their property and hails from a communist nation. The fact that certain Americans in the land of the free enjoy being about what their neighbors are doing baffles him. The other neighbor I have is an 88-year-old man who weeds his grass by hand. The man shouldn't start a book because he's so close to passing away. Nevertheless, his only concern in life is whining about the yards of other people. That kind of a-hole indeed. He reports me for everything. I wait 10 days to cut my grass instead of doing it in a week? Violation. Brown spot on my lawn from a bug or something else? Violation. The mulch around my bushes looks old? Violation. Left my garbage cans a couple hours past dusk? Violation. For 2 years, I had to deal with this horse ass non-stop. My 3 dogs play together in the backyard. A portion of the grass is dead from running. Grass doesn't really matter all that much to me. Nothing major, my yard's fenced in, right? Irma the hurricane makes landfall, destroyed 40 feet of my fence. What is it that my amazing neighbor does? Uses the fact that a natural disaster destroyed my fence as an opportunity to snap photos and send them to the HOA company. Fine for violation, and now I have to pay thousands of dollars to have my lawn resodded so that my dogs can play in it. After the hurricane, townhouse roofs were tarped for over a year before the HOA fixed them. However, I'm the a-hole for some dead grass you'll only notice when my fence blows over. The final straw was that. List my residence for sale vowed never to return to living in an HOA. I discovered another realtor. I discovered a lovely home without a homeowners association in a peaceful neighborhood. Numerous neighbors maintain their car repair projects in their driveway. Some people take their yards very seriously. Some people, myself included, don't give a d about grass, gardens, or plants. And everyone lives in peace and harmony, and property values are fine, even without an HOA here to save us. I have two terrifying stories, even though I'm not even in a homeowners association. One belongs to me and the other to a friend. Friend story. Since his grandfather is very old and unable to walk upstairs, he took him in and built a wheelchair ramp for him. He did obtain a permit from the town beforehand, but his HOA fined him for building the ramp without their prior approval. He was then penalized once more for neglecting to submit his grandfather's residence application. Other than him, his grandfather has no other family. With the death of his father, my friend had no choice but to go into a nursing home. He thus faces daily fines and fights it for 3 months. I don't remember the breakdown, but after 90 days, the ramp plus tenant fines came to about $30,000 or $333 per day. He ultimately prevailed in the ramp portion due to state regulations pertaining to the elderly and disabled, but was unsuccessful in the tenant application. In the end, they worked out a deal where he would sell, essentially be forced to foreclose, but he still owed roughly $10,000 in application fees. That fine was deducted straight from his sale, which he made quickly and for a significant less than market value. It had been his home for a number of years before. He and his grandfather now reside in a non-HOA across the street from where he once lived. My story. Although the HOA where I live is not a homeowners association, it's been collecting houses for a while. Of the 14 houses on my street, maybe 10 are non-HOA. After moving in, I receive a visit from the HOA members within the first month. It appears that the previous owner contributed to initiatives he believed would raise the value of his property. I told them I wasn't interested in the place because I didn't get any of that information when I bought it. They attempted to convince me to join, but I declined. They then try a different strategy when they return after a week or two. Since there's only one direct neighbor on my street because I live on a corner, it appears that my neighborhood is an HOA member. They're attempting to convince me that eminent domain applies and that I will now be regarded as a member. I tell them no, that's not how HOAs operate, and I don't see how we're related. They attempt to play hardball now. In order to ensure that my fence, the white vinyl fence they detest, isn't on his property, they hired a surveyor to come out and examine my neighbor's land. They attempt to survey my land while they work. I wasn't home, but my girlfriend was, and she told them to leave. They did leave when she insisted on it, even though they claimed the HOA had paid them. When the surveyor returned, he found that some of my neighbor's plants were actually on my land and that I was on my own. I don't care, so I'll just leave it at that. They try to use their eminent domain now and visit me to tell me that my dues are past due. Since I'm not an HOA, I tell them I'm not paying dues. They argue with me, and if it's about HOA issues, I tell them to get out of my house. They try to give me some BS fines about my backyard when they come by again. You would need to be 7 feet tall to see over my fenced-in backyard. When I looked at the security footage, they had opened my fence, entered, and examined my backyard. So I called the police for trespassing, and I haven't heard from any of them since in exchange for dropping charges. So HOAs suck, and even if you aren't in one, they'll try to make you join. F that noise and them too. I reside in a community that is managed by a separate property management company and is managed by an HOA. The property management company provided us with a new representative, but it was not someone who was suited for providing customer service. She was abrasive, loud, and would retaliate against anyone who confronted her with aggressive behavior. It was my intention to encourage other members of our community to investigate the company and discuss the problems with the representative. After some time had passed, I am the recipient of a certified letter that serves as a cease and desist. It came from the attorney who specializes in property management and homeowners associations. In the event that I continued to make negative statements about the issues on the internet, it was stated that I would be subject to both civil and criminal charges. A lawyer was consulted by me. It was determined that the cease and desist order was not valid. The State Bar Association ultimately decided to take disciplinary action against the attorney for making false claims and intimidating the client. After a few months had passed, the representative was terminated due to the very same problem that had occurred with another resident. If you want to watch the part 1, click the link here. Thank you for subscribing, your likes, and comments. We're very happy to see you all in the comments too. Thanks for your support.